I still remember the night it all began, the night that changed everything, the night I realized that love can be the sweetest poison. I was the kind of girl who believed in forever. When I love, I give everything. My time, my trust, my heart. I never played games. I never pretended. I believed love was supposed to be pure, real, something that healed you, not something that destroyed you. But little did I know, the man I loved the most was only pretending to love me back. His name was Ryan. Charming, confident, the kind of man who could make any girl fall for him with just one look. He had that quiet magnetism, a calm voice, an easy smile, and eyes that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. And somehow, I became the girl who fell for that smile. We met on a night I wasn't even planning to go out. It was my best friend's birthday party. Honestly, I almost cancelled. I was tired from a long week and wanted to stay home, but fate, or maybe something darker, had other plans. The party was loud, full of laughter, music, and flashing lights. And yet, the moment I saw him across the room, everything else faded away. It was as if time froze. Our eyes met, and for a second, the world disappeared. He smiled, and something inside me shifted. He walked over to me with that easy confidence that some people are just born with. We talked for hours that night about dreams, life, little things. He asked about my favorite book, my favorite food, how I liked my coffee, and the way he listened made me feel seen in a way I'd never felt before. Every word from him felt thoughtful, gentle, careful. He looked at me like I was something rare, something special. It felt different. He wasn't like the others, or at least that's what I thought. He didn't interrupt me. He remembered what I said. He made me feel important. Before I knew it, the night was over. As I was leaving, he said softly, "I hope this isn't the last time I see you." That one sentence played in my head 100 times. Before I fell asleep that night, the next day, he texted, then called, then showed up with coffee. 2 sugars, no cream, exactly how I liked it. Every gesture felt perfect, like he had memorized the script of my heart. And I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I had found the person I was meant to be with. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Every time my phone lit up with his name, my heart raced. Every good morning text made me smile like a fool. Every time he said he missed me, I believed him. Because when you crave love, you stop looking for red flags. You only see the colors that comfort you. I told my mom about him. She smiled and said, "He seems like a good man, Emma. Don't lose him." And I promised her I wouldn't, because in my head, Ryan was my forever. He was everything I had dreamed of. Gentle, funny, kind. But sometimes, forever has an expiration date. Sometimes, the love that feels the most real turns out to be the most fake. Looking back, maybe I should have noticed the little things. How perfectly timed his affection was. How his words always sounded practiced. How his charm felt a little too polished. But I didn't want to see it. I was blinded by how he made me feel. Safe, wanted, loved. For a while, I truly was the happiest girl alive. I thought I had found the kind of love that only exists in stories. But happiness built on lies never lasts long. And deep down, I think some part of me always knew the truth was coming. Ryan and I became inseparable. Every single morning began with his texts. Sweet little messages that made me smile before I even got out of bed. Every night ended with his voice on the phone, soft and calm, telling me how much he missed me, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. It felt like a dream, the kind you never want to wake up from. He made me feel like I was his world, like no one could ever take my place. He'd show up unexpectedly with flowers, sometimes lilies, sometimes roses, always the kind I loved. He'd plan long drives to nowhere, just us, the road, and his hand resting on mine as music played softly in the background. There was something in the way he looked at me. Steady, sure. Like he saw something in me no one else did. And every time he whispered, "I've never met anyone like you, Emma." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Because when someone gives you the kind of attention you've always longed for, you don't question it. You surrender to it. You tell yourself this is what love is supposed to feel like. You start to depend on it, crave it, live for it. His words became my comfort. His presence, my peace. I built my happiness around him without realizing that one day, that very foundation would crumble beneath me. My friends adored him. They'd tease me every time he came around. "You two are made for each other," they'd say, half joking but full of envy. Even my mum smiled whenever his name came up. "He's such a good man, sweetheart," she'd tell me. "Don't lose him." And I'd nod, promising silently that I never would. Because in my mind, he was the one, the man I had been waiting for all my life. But sometimes, when something feels too perfect, it's because it's not real. Love isn't supposed to be flawless. It's supposed to be honest. I didn't realize that what I was living wasn't love. It was an illusion carefully painted to look like one. The cracks started small. Missed calls he'd explain away with simple excuses. Messages left unread. Moments where his mood would shift without warning. Some nights he'd vanish, claiming he was tired or busy. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that everyone needs space. I told myself he'd never lie to me. I trusted him more than I trusted my own instincts. Whenever I asked questions, he'd smile that same disarming smile and say, "You worry too much." And just like that, I'd let it go. That smile was my weakness. It had the power to erase every doubt, silence every suspicion. I didn't see the manipulation behind it. The way he used affection to blind me. Back then, I didn't know I was living in a story he had already written. Every scene, every line, every gesture, all part of a script I didn't even realize I was in. I thought we were building something together, but he was only playing a role. I was the girl who believed in forever, and he was the man who knew exactly how to fake it. Looking back, I can see all the signs that I missed. The empty promises, the sudden distance, the way his eyes sometimes looked at me, but didn't really see me. I was too caught up in the idea of us to recognize that I was just a chapter in his book, one he planned to close when it suited him. At that time, I thought I was living a love story, but what I didn't realize was that every perfect moment was just a setup for the heartbreak that was waiting around the corner. It happened one evening. I remember it so clearly because it started out so ordinary, and yet by the time the night ended, nothing in my life would ever be the same. I called Ryan just to hear his voice. It was something I often did. A small comfort at the end of a long day, but that night, when the call connected, it wasn't Ryan who answered. A woman's voice came through the line, soft, calm, confident, too confident. "Ryan's in the shower," she said gently. "Can I take a message?" For a moment, everything inside me stopped. My breath, my heartbeat, even my thoughts. I froze, gripping the phone so tightly it hurt. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. I just hung up. My hands were shaking, my pulse racing so fast it made my head spin. Her voice replayed in my mind over and over again. Who was she? Why did she sound so comfortable in his home? Why did she say his name, like she knew him better than I did? I tried to calm myself, to think logically. Maybe it was his sister, maybe a friend. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, a voice I didn't want to hear whispered the truth. I wasn't wrong. I just didn't want to believe it. That night, sleep never came. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind drowning in memories of him, his laughter, his promises, the way he'd say, "You're my everything." Every word that once made me feel safe now felt like a lie wrapped in tenderness. By dawn, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands trembled as I opened his social media. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe reassurance. Maybe proof of my worst fear. My heart pounded as I scrolled, each picture and post feeling like a clue in a puzzle I didn't want to solve. And then I saw her. Clara, that was her name. Beautiful, poised, confident. The kind of woman who radiated certainty. And there, she was, standing right beside Ryan in a picture he'd posted just 2 days ago. They were smiling. His hand rested on her waist, casual and familiar. The caption read, "Couldn't have asked for a better night." My chest tightened. 2 days ago. The same night he told me he was working late. The world around me blurred. My eyes burning with tears I didn't want to shed. My body felt hollow, my heart heavy enough to sink me. I wanted to scream, to confront him, to demand answers, but no words came out because betrayal doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it's quiet. It slips in softly, like a whisper. And before you realize it, it's taken everything from you. I sat there for hours, staring at that photo, my tears eventually drying on my cheeks. The pain didn't vanish. It settled, cold, still. Something inside me shifted that night. The part of me that used to cry for him began to harden. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't ask for explanations. I already knew would be lies. Instead, I watched. I observed. Every move he made, every excuse, every post. I saw how easily he switched between personas. Loving with me, charming with her. He had built 2 worlds, and I had been living in the fake one. But I wasn't that naive girl anymore. Not after that night. That was the night I stopped being blind. The night my heart stopped asking why, and started whispering, "Wait," because something deeper than heartbreak had begun to grow inside me. Something calm, sharp, and patient. I didn't know it yet, but it was the beginning of my revenge. A week later, Ryan told me he had to go out of town for a business meeting. His voice sounded calm, but there was something off about it. Something too smooth, too controlled, like he had practiced the line before saying it. Maybe once, I would have believed him without a second thought. But that version of me, the trusting, hopeful one, was gone. I had already learned what blind faith costs. So that night, instead of sitting at home and waiting for his usual, "I'll call you later" message, I followed him. I stayed far enough behind so he wouldn't notice. Driving slowly, my heart pounding so hard, it felt like I could hear it over the engine. When he parked outside his office, I waited a few blocks away, pretending to scroll through my phone while my mind played every possible scenario. Maybe he really did have a meeting. Maybe I was just paranoid. But deep down I knew. I think I always did. 2 hours passed before the door finally opened, and then I saw him, laughing, relaxed, happier than I'd seen him in weeks. But he wasn't alone. She was with him. Clara, the same woman from the photo, the same woman who had answered his phone. Their hands were intertwined, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He looked at her the way he used to look at me, with that same intensity, that same affection. They walked close, their bodies brushing with every step, completely lost in their own world. I stayed in the car, frozen, my fingers tightened around the steering wheel, until my knuckles turned white. My chest felt like it was on fire, but I didn't cry. Not this time. The pain was too deep for tears, too sharp, too real. I just watched in silence as he opened the car door for her, smiling, whispering something that made her laugh. And in that moment, Something inside me went cold. I had seen enough. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't rush over and create a scene like in the movies. No shouting, no drama, no begging. Because when someone plays you like a fool, the best revenge isn't anger. It's patience. I wanted him to keep believing that his lies were still working, that I was still blind, still trusting. I wanted him to think he was safe, because people like Ryan only realize what they've done when it's already too late. When I got home, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself for a long time. My eyes were swollen from the past few nights of crying, but this time they were dry, calm. There was a strength in my reflection I hadn't seen before, a kind of quiet power that comes when pain turns into purpose. I whispered to myself, no more tears, no more excuses. This ends on my terms. That night, I didn't fall apart. I didn't crumble. I made a promise, not to him, but to myself. I wasn't going to waste another ounce of emotion on someone who had turned love into a game. I was done being his victim. He had written his story of lies and betrayal, but now it was my turn to write the ending. I lay down that night, not as the girl who loved him, but as the woman who was going to make him remember me. For all the right reasons, and all the wrong ones. Revenge didn't begin with a shout. It started with a quiet, steady decision to take back control. I realized quickly that anger alone would only burn me out. What hurt Ryan most wasn't my pain. It was his image. He thrived on attention, on being admired, on the idea that everyone saw him the way he wanted to be seen. So if I wanted him to feel the weight of what he'd done, I had to strike where it mattered most. I went back to being the girl he thought he had. I became patient again, warm and understanding, the girlfriend who smiled and listened and never made a scene. I sat through his stories about work, nodded at the jokes he wanted me to laugh at, and kept my voice soft when he needed someone to lean on. It was an act, one I wore like a mask, but it put him right where I needed him. Comfortable, confident, careless. While he relaxed into that comfort, I was quietly building my case. Every message he sent, every call, every promise, I saved. I took screenshots. I recorded late-night conversations where his words sounded practiced and smooth. And I copied texts that revealed the truth hidden behind his charm. I wrote down dates and times, little details he thought he could change later. Evidence doesn't forget. It doesn't get lost in excuses. I made sure nothing he said could be erased by his silver tongue. I also needed to understand the other half of his life, the one he kept behind closed doors. I made a fake account and reached out to Clara carefully, like someone entering a room full of secrets. I didn't attack her. I listened. I let her talk about him as if I were a friend she could trust. She told me small things that fit into the bigger pattern. Dinners he claimed were business, trips that had no receipts, promises he'd whispered when he thought no one was listening. She believed he was single. She believed his lines. In her honesty, I found the proof I needed. There were nights I wanted to destroy everything in a burst of fury, to send the screenshots to everyone and watch him fall apart in real time. But impatience would have been a mistake. I wanted his downfall to be complete, precise, undeniable. I planned meticulously. I chose the moments where his image mattered most. The office party where he was proud. The family dinner where his parents praised him. The friend night where he liked to shine. I imagined the look on his face when the truth showed up on the big screen, when his carefully crafted life matched against unarguable facts. I also prepared for the aftermath. I archived everything in multiple places, sent copies to trusted accounts I could control, and wrote a clear timeline that made it impossible for him to twist the story. I practiced the calm voice I would use when the time came. No crying, no pleading, only quiet facts and evidence. I wanted people to see him clearly, without the fog of his charm. Living that double life took its toll. but it taught me something I hadn't known before. Strength can be quiet. I didn't want to become cruel, but I needed justice. I wanted him to understand what it felt like to be invisible to someone you loved, and then to be revealed for what you truly were. He had said once, "Image is everything." He was right. I was going to take that image and show everyone exactly how fragile it was. When the pieces finally fit together, I felt a strange calm. This wasn't about winning or getting even. It was about reclaiming my dignity and making sure his lies had consequences. I didn't do it out of hate. I did it because someone needed to hold him accountable for treating my heart like a game. It was his birthday, the day he loved the most. He always treated it like a celebration of his own perfection, a night to prove how admired and untouchable he was. The party was grand, exactly the way he liked it. Expensive suits, soft jazz playing in the background, laughter echoing off crystal glasses. Everyone he wanted to impress was there. His friends, his co-workers, even his parents. He looked proud, standing in the middle of the room like the star of his own show. When he asked me to be there, he wanted me beside him, smiling, looking like the girl who completed his perfect image. I told him I wouldn't miss it, and I meant it, just not for the reason he thought. That night, I dressed simply, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed for attention. I wanted him to have the spotlight. After all, people always reveal their true selves when they think no one is watching. He was glowing, laughing with his friends, shaking hands, making toasts. Everyone adored him. I watched from across the room, holding my glass, quietly memorizing the moment. He had no idea that everything he built was about to crumble in front of the same people who praised him. I had planned every detail, the timing, the setup, even the tone of my voice. My phone was ready in my hand, the screen dark but alive with the evidence I'd collected. I waited for the perfect moment, the one he always craved most, when all eyes were on him. When the music softened and the lights dimmed, the room turned toward him for the traditional birthday toast. He grinned, raised his glass, and began his speech about loyalty, love, and gratitude. Every word made my stomach twist, but I stayed calm. I clapped when he finished, just like everyone else. Then, I stood. My voice didn't shake. My face didn't show a hint of what was coming. To Ryan, I said softly, smiling as if I meant it, a man who taught me what love really means. The room clapped again, and for a moment, I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He thought I was playing my part perfectly. He thought he'd won. But then, I pressed play. The screen behind us came to life, and his voice filled the room. A recording of him whispering sweet words, the same ones he'd told me countless times. At first, people smiled, assuming it was something romantic. But then, another clip played. His voice again. The same lines, only this time spoken to someone else. Another woman, Clara. The shift in the room was immediate. Laughter died. The whispers started. The truth began to unfold. One message at a time. One lie after another. The video continued. Screenshots of his texts. Recordings of late-night calls. Images he'd sworn didn't exist. Every piece of evidence was a crack in his carefully crafted image. The people who once admired him stood frozen, their smiles replaced with disbelief. His mother's hand covered her mouth. His father's expression hardened. His friends avoided his eyes. The silence in the room grew heavy, pressing down on every person there. Ryan's face drained of color. He stuttered something, tried to laugh it off, but no one was laughing anymore. He looked at me, panic replacing the confidence he wore so proudly. I met his gaze, calm and unshaken. I didn't need to yell or explain. Everything he had tried to hide was right there, playing out for everyone to see. I turned to leave. The sound of my heels on the floor echoed through the room as the video kept playing behind me. He called my name, but I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, and for the first time, it felt like I could breathe again. The lies, the manipulation, the pain, all of it stayed inside that room with him. I walked away quietly, knowing the truth had finally spoken louder than I ever could. The next morning, my phone stayed silent. No buzzing, no messages, no fake apologies pretending to fix what was already broken. Just silence. It filled the room like a calm after a long, violent storm. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up with anxiety twisting inside me. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and watched the world outside move on like it always had. Cars passing, sunlight spilling through the clouds, life carrying on without hesitation. And as I watched it, I realized something powerful. Freedom doesn't come with noise. It comes quietly, in moments like this, when you finally stop caring about the person who once controlled your emotions. Later that day, Ryan called. His name flashed across my screen again and again, but my heart didn't race this time. I let it ring. I didn't know him answers. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to salvage. Silence became my closure, and in that silence, I found peace. Days passed, and slowly, I started hearing about what was happening to him. His company pulled him off major projects after the scandal. Clara walked away without looking back. The friends who used to laugh at his jokes started avoiding him. The image he worked so hard to maintain had shattered, and no amount of charm could glue it back together. I didn't smile out of satisfaction. I didn't celebrate. I simply let it be. Karma had done what I no longer needed to do. Meanwhile, I began to breathe again. Truly breathe. I started writing, something I'd stopped doing when my world revolved around him. At first, it was just scribbles in a notebook, a way to release everything I'd been holding inside. But soon, I started sharing parts of my story online, not for revenge, not to humiliate anyone, but to heal, and maybe help others see that they weren't alone in their pain. What surprised me was how many people connected to it. Messages poured in from strangers, thanking me for giving words to what they couldn't express. And that's when I realized that the story I thought had destroyed me was actually rebuilding me. Every word I wrote became a piece of myself I was reclaiming. Ryan became just a name, a memory, a lesson. I stopped replaying our moments in my head. I stopped questioning what I could have done differently. Because the truth was, I did enough. I loved deeply, I trusted fully, and I survived completely. That was my victory. Real revenge isn't about making someone suffer. It's about walking away so completely that their existence no longer disturbs your peace. It's when your silence says everything you no longer need to explain. That morning, sitting by the window with coffee in my hand, I understood that I didn't lose anything. He did. I smiled, not because he was gone, but because I was finally free. Love was never meant to hurt. It was meant to build, to lift, to help you grow into something stronger than before. But when love turns into a game, when someone treats your heart like a toy, the only way to win is to walk away. Ryan believed my kindness was weakness. My loyalty was naivety. He mistook my silence for surrender, my forgiveness for blindness. But what he never realized was that once the tears stopped, so did his control. There came a moment when I felt no anger, no sadness, just peace. A calm so strong that even his name couldn't shake it. I didn't seek revenge anymore. I didn't want him to suffer. I wanted to be free, and that freedom came not from breaking him, but from no longer needing him. When a woman stops crying, she becomes unstoppable, and I had reached that point. He thought I would beg for love, chase after his approval, and wait for the apology that would never come. Instead, I learned to stand alone, to rebuild myself piece by piece, stronger than before. I didn't need to prove anything to him, only to myself. Losing me became the consequence of his own choices. A truth he couldn't escape, a silence louder than any confrontation. In the quiet, I found clarity. Love isn't about convincing someone to see your worth. It's about knowing it, even when they don't. It's about walking away when staying means losing yourself. I stopped asking why it happened and started asking what it taught me. And it taught me everything I needed to know about strength, dignity, and the power of letting go. I no longer see the girl who once believed too much. I see a woman who learned to believe in herself, a woman who turned heartbreak into healing and betrayal into power. Because the real victory wasn't in making him regret losing me. It was in realizing that I never needed him to begin with.